Hello and welcome to a quick fighter profile for the
Gerald GM3 Meerschaert!
Gerald Edward Meerschaert III was born in 1987 in Racine, Wisconsin, just outside of Milwaukee, hence the name GM3, Gerald Meerschaert III. GM3 studied Taekwondo when he was young, and he grew up playing instruments all throughout school. In college, he studied music education, hoping to later become a music teacher, but instead saw the UFC on TV and decided to start beating people up for a living. GM3 began his fighting career in 2007 professionally, and he's been fighting ever since. In 2016, he broke into the UFC with a decisive victory over Joe Gigliotti, submission by Anaconda choke. GM3 holds a professional record of 35 wins and 16 losses, which is incredible considering the amount of fighting that he's done. His breadth of knowledge of fighting is almost unrivaled compared to most people in the UFC today. GM3 has had some really interesting fights. Generally, he's put up against guys that are newer to the UFC or that are more mid-level, but he has had some really interesting bouts, including one that is against Kevin Holland, which went to a decision split loss, as well as a round 1 KO loss against Khamzat. And also there's a win very recently against Bruno Silva. So all these are very interesting, and we're going to review some footage of these. GM3 is 35 years old. He's 6'1". He's 185.5-ish pounds. He has a 77.5-inch reach. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt kickboxer in the middleweight division. So he's a little bit over the average reach in the middleweight division, which gives him a little bit extra length on that jab, a little bit extra just length in general for kicks and striking and whatnot. A little bit taller than the average. The first fight I want to review is his fight against Muradov. He did win this fight in round 2 due to a submission via rear naked choke. But I just want to note that he starts off looking pretty good, pushing ahead with the strikes, getting pretty aggressive. But Muradov is just overwhelming in a lot of aspects. He hits really hard. He has really good striking. All around, he's just doing a lot of damage in the first round to Gerald. And Gerald really wants to just play jiu-jitsu. He wants to get on the ground and he wants to grapple. And Muradov knew that that's just probably not the best plan. So we're gonna see like a pretty nice combinations out of Gerald, but overall in round 1, Muradov is just too much for him. He definitely does a lot more damage than what Gerald is prepared for. Also worth noting in round 1 that Gerald does have an eye poke as well as a kick to the balls here, which could affect people differently. And going into round 2, we see Gerald getting absolutely rocked right off the bat. And man, does this guy have a chin. He is really, really tough. But when he is landing strikes, he's landing heavy. I mean, you'll see him hit some really, really good strikes that definitely rock Muradov. And one of the things about Muradov is that he gets pretty gassed in the second round, like a lot of UFC fighters do. But Meerschaert, he really kind of goes slow. He's always kind of consistent with his pacing. And so basically, the two things that I really want to highlight from this fight, or the three, I guess, is number 1, he has a hell of a chin. Number 2, his striking is accurate and he hits really hard. And number 3, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, so he wants to get to the ground. And so what we're going to see here is Gerald getting down to the ground, getting that rear naked choke, and yeah, basically just completely gassing Muradov out. So yeah, Meerschaert, really, really good, sort of a dynamic UFC fighter, but he also has a lot of history, so he's, pretty solid game, solid all around, and he knows how to get the job done. So the next piece of tape I want to highlight here is the Jotko Meerschaert fight. Jotko and Meerschaert in this fight are essentially just having a kickboxing match for about the first half, and then the second half turns into a Jotko takedown and sort of a ground game between Jotko and Meerschaert. So I want to highlight this. Meerschaert is completely outclassed in his striking here. He has a lot of times when he basically is just moving in, and Jotko is kind of getting off that center line and just doing a lot of damage with counter striking. So he catches a lot of damage right early on in the fight. But also we know that Meerschaert can take it. We just watched the last fight, so we know he's very capable of taking it. There's a fair amount of wrestling in this fight. Meerschaert goes for 2 takedown attempts before anything even happens, but Jotko essentially just outclasses him, gets back up super quickly. Like we know, Meerschaert is gonna want to get down to the ground. It's part of his game. He wants to get you down to the ground and he wants to fight on the ground. However, Jotko does get him down to the ground 2 times, which we're gonna see here, and Meerschaert can't really capitalize on it. You know, he's essentially he's relatively gassed. He's taken a lot of damage, and yeah, he loses pretty hard in this fight. So it's definitely interesting. You know, his striking in this fight does not look as good as it normally might. He doesn't really land those big clean shots, and he goes to a decision loss. So for the third and last fight that I want to review, this is the fight between Bruno Silva and Gerald Meerschaert. This fight is absolutely fascinating. He was really disappointed after coming off of his loss in the last fight against Jotko, the one that we just reviewed a minute ago. He's really upset about that. So he went down to Florida, he started training in Florida. I noticed a lot of improvements in this fight. He's fighting completely different. One of the things he's doing the most is he's just slipping so many punches. I mean, I feel like this could be a highlight reel in and of itself, the amount of punches he slips in the first round of this fight. Bruno Silva is just throwing. He's really, you know, actually he looks like he's in a bit of like deep waters at first, I would say. He takes a couple strikes, but really I wouldn't say either of these fighters took a ton of damage in the first round. This is the biggest thing to happen right here. Gerald gets a takedown. He doesn't really do a ton with it. He gets the takedown. He basically holds him down. But yeah, Gerald looks a lot better. He looks a lot different than he did in his last fight. In this fight, he definitely went down and did some training in Florida, and he's still there with Killcliff FC. So he looks different in this fight compared to the fight against Jotko. You know, really, he just does a little bit of damage there. Here he catches a big right hand because he can't slip all of them. Bam, baby! So this right hand kind of stumbles him a little bit. He's not feeling so good after that one, but you know, honestly, it doesn't really mean much. Round two is, there's definitely a little bit of trading back and forth, more slipping. I would say the biggest thing is that Silva definitely caught him a couple times. And also, I would say a lot more dynamic striking. He's doing a lot more kicking than he was in the Jotko fight. But right here, he definitely gets takes a little bit of damage. Gets out of there quick. I don't love to see that when I'm watching a fight, but you got to do what you got to do. I mean, you're in the octagon. So he does it once, he does it again. This is round three here. Now, again, Meerschaert hits really, really hard. So don't forget that. All the strikes that he's landing are doing a lot of damage, and that one just takes Silva to the ground. Like, I mean, it basically rocks him. He's pretty much knocked out here, and yeah, gets finished by Meerschaert. Look, overall, Meerschaert's a really well-rounded fighter. He's been around the block. He's good at striking. He's actually getting better, like, as time goes on, so he's developing better. He loves getting down to the ground. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. All around, he's a really great fighter. He's had some wins and losses, but, you know, I would never count him out. I definitely would say, you know, he's a good fighter. So, Meerschaert, if you're watching this, you're a beast, man. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Everybody have a great day.